Hello, I am Mark McDonald, President and CEO of the Georgia Trust. Thank you for joining us for the announcement of our 2021 Places in Peril. Although this year's announcement may be virtual due to the ongoing pandemic, the Georgia Trust work continues, especially with programs like our Places in Peril list. 2021 marks the 16th year for the Georgia Trust Places in Peril program. Every summer, the Trust receives nominations of sites to be added to our list, and our dedicated staff and committee members review and research these nominations. The Trust identifies 10 sites for our annual list that we truly feel have historic significance, face a real threat, are representative of larger preservation issues, and have the potential to benefit from heightened awareness and technical support from the Georgia Trust. In the coming year, the Trust will work closely with representatives associated with each site to develop unique approaches for each site's preservation. But we cannot do it alone. Like all our programs here at the Trust, the success of the Places in Peril program depends on your support. One way you can support these efforts is by becoming a member of the Georgia Trust, which can be done easily by visiting our website. Every membership and every donation to the Georgia Trust supports our important programming and allows us to make a difference to communities throughout the state. We want to thank our talented Places in Peril committee, chaired by Jane Royal, and our photographers from Motorsports Media. And lastly, thank you for your ongoing support. And now, let's unveil the 10 sites selected for the 2021 Places in Peril list. Opened in 1934, Ashby Street Theater was one of Atlanta's first theaters to serve the African American community as part of the Bailey Theaters chain. The theater was built by an all-African American construction crew, providing those workers important employment in the midst of the Great Depression. In the Jim Crow era, Ashby Street Theater provided a space for African Americans to enjoy the latest movies in their own community without having to suffer segregated entrances and seating areas. The theater served as an anchor for the surrounding neighborhoods throughout the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. The Ashby Street Theater has not been occupied for many years and suffers from a lack of maintenance. The original theater marquee remains intact behind the plywood boards, which are showing signs of wear and weathering. While the building is boarded up, the interior suffers from water damage. People experiencing homelessness have attempted to occupy the building, causing further threat and damage. Despite its continued disrepair, there is now significant development occurring all around the Ashby Street Theater, creating an opportunity for its revitalization as a community gathering spot once again. Originally constructed as an expansive private residence in 1898 and 1905 respectively, the Atlanta Eagle and Kodak buildings reflect over a century of urban evolution and social history in the city of Atlanta. Once a prosperous corridor, Ponce de Leon Avenue shifted to prime commercial real estate with the growing prominence of the automobile. The Atlanta Eagle building, altered for commercial use in 1949, eventually became a place of prominence in the LGBTQ community, significant as a site for public social interaction. The Kodak building was originally constructed as an Italian Renaissance revival house, but also underwent a commercial alteration in the 1940s with the opening of Star Photo. Historically significant for its association with the rise of commercial amateur photography, it also served as the campaign headquarters of Shirley Franklin, Atlanta's first female mayor. Currently, the structures suffer from a lack of maintenance and a direct threat of demolition. The Atlanta Eagle has recently closed due to financial hardship brought on by the pandemic. The properties are highly susceptible to demolition without the addition of local preservation protections. Known locally as the Old Hanging Jail, the Blackshear City Jail is thought to be the third in a series of interior gallows jailhouses in the South. This unique Gothic-style structure was constructed in 1894, yet the jail never officially recorded a hanging from its gallows-like tower. The jail was described to be Gothic in design to illustrate the Goths and Vandals of society who occupy it, with a dash of the Renaissance to point to the new birth unto righteousness. The building also featured living quarters for the jailer and his family, including a kitchen. Years of neglect and a lack of maintenance have taken its toll on this unique structure. The curved steel interior roof structure is rusting, the cells are deteriorating, and the presence of hazardous materials keeps the building closed to the public. There is interest in the building and a demand for potential tours, but the current state of the building does not allow for access. The Cherry Grove Schoolhouse is a rare surviving example of an early 20th century rural African American school building in Georgia. The one-room wood frame building was constructed circa 1910 on the grounds of the old Cherry Grove Baptist Church, which was founded in 1875. The schoolhouse is one of the only 15 extant pre-Rosenwald era African American schoolhouses built on church grounds within the state of Georgia. The building, used to teach primary school through the 7th grade, provides a critical link in the history of African American education in Georgia. The schoolhouse suffers from years of neglect and of lack of maintenance due to financial realities of a small, rural congregation. A report authored by the University of Georgia in 2016 found the schoolhouse to be in dire need of repair. Thorough structural intervention would allow this small but significant site to be preserved. This civic district in far north Georgia represents the history of a small but vibrant enclave of Black Georgians. The district consists of 3 contiguous properties: Andrews Chapel, Pleasant Valley Baptist Church, and the Old Colored School. Andrews Chapel, with a congregation organized in the 1870s, was constructed in 1902 and moved to its current location in 1923. Pleasant Valley Baptist Church, constructed in 1941, reflected continued growth of the Black community. The Old Colored School was constructed in 1930 after a long history of education in the community and remained open until 1953, when it merged with another school in the last phase of the Great Consolidation. The school building has also served as a fellowship hall for the church congregations. All 3 resources are now owned by the town of Cohutta. To its credit, the current leadership in Cohutta recognizes the significance of this district, however long-established threats persist. Population has dwindled and the use of the buildings has become sporadic. Stabilization and routine maintenance are concerns for each of the buildings. The Old Colored School and the Pleasant Valley Church suffer from water infiltration and deterioration. There are current plans but limited resources to convert the Andrews Chapel into a public meeting space that will benefit the community. Incorporated in 1904, the town of Toomsboro primarily grew as a whistle stop between the Macon and Savannah along the Central Georgia Railroad. After the Civil War, the town developed an active downtown district which grew through its incorporation and remained active through the mid-20th century, even with a population that remained around 700 persons. Many of the original structures, including the depot, several mills, a blacksmith workshop, a bank, post office, and a hotel, as well as several stores and homes, still exist today. Over time, several of the buildings were converted into other uses, such as the Swampland Opera House, which opened in 1975. Despite its charm, many of the downtown buildings are showing deterioration. While no demolition efforts are actively planned, several of the structures have unsafe interiors and exteriors. Many of the properties are held by a single owner who has not shown a willingness to invest in significant rehabilitation efforts, but has shown a willingness to market the town as available for purchase by others. The mayor and council wish to promote the town, but also balance its history with its future by attracting preservation-minded buyers sympathetic to the historic structures. Built in 1910, the Savannah House was the longtime residence of Dr. Calvin L. Kia, a professor who led Savannah State's college education department, and Virginia Kia, a public school teacher, artist, and curator. In their home, the couple established one of the first museums in Savannah, started by African Americans back in 1959. Notable visitors included civil rights activist Rosa Parks and artist Margaret Burroughs. Originally a prairie-style home, Virginia put a 2-story addition on the front with a full wall of windows to accommodate the museum. The museum's run came to an end with Virginia's death in 2001. Originally excluded as a contributing property from its neighborhood historic district due to alterations, the Kia House is a good example of how a property's significance can be reconsidered over time. Unoccupied and in probate for nearly 20 years, the house is in an advanced state of deterioration, which has not gone unnoticed by the city. Due to the issues surrounding the probate, concerned citizens have been unable to apply for grants, conduct archaeological research, or perform any maintenance to the property. There is strong community support for the preservation and recognition of this resource, yet the house remains in danger of being lost. Built in 1895 and listed on the National Register of Historic Places, the Old Methodist Church is a contributing property to the Monticello Historic District. The building was constructed for the Methodist congregation, which had grown significantly in the prior decade due to the ministry of Sam P. Jones, who went on to national acclaim as the Apostle of Prohibition. The church is a wonderful example of eclectic Carpenter Gothic construction with its arched windows and bell tower with octagonal turret details. Several sections of the large arched window on the northern facade retain their original stained glass. The Methodist congregation moved in the 1950s, and the building was utilized as a funeral home as well as a worship space for several other congregations. The building has been vacant since the 1990s and suffers from neglect. Termite infestations have caused significant damage to the exposed load-bearing beams. Broken windows throughout the property leave the interior exposed to the elements, allowing vegetation, water, and vandals to enter the building and basement. The building is owned by a defunct corporation, which limits the interventions that concerned local authorities can take, despite a strong desire to stabilize and rehabilitate the property to its former glory. This high-style Victorian courthouse is listed on the National Register of Historic Places and was constructed in 1892. It stands as one of the tallest historic courthouses in Georgia and features many intricate architectural details that reflect its significance, including the turreted clock tower, Romanesque arches, an onion-domed turret, and Palladian window. Materials from within the State House were used whenever possible from the construction site, such as Georgia clay for the bricks, Georgia granite, and Georgia pines for the structure and floors. The courthouse is an icon for the area, standing in the center square of Dawson. Listed on the National Trust Inaugural Places list in 2006, the courthouse was fully rehabilitated in 2009. However, in 2018, the building was suffering new damage to its roof and exterior as a result of the Category 5 Hurricane Michael. Major leaks and water damage have since occurred. The court and multiple county offices have been displaced, and although the majority of the emergency repairs have been completed on the exterior, the building remains unoccupied and closed to the public, as the county lacks the resources to return the building to its safe rehabilitated condition. The Vineville Avenue corridor in Macon is the main thoroughfare which anchors the Vineville Historic District. The 3 blocks that make up the corridor are the most intact areas of the original Vineville suburb, which featured a significant collection of late 19th and early 20th century upper middle class residential architecture. Of the 16 residences in the corridor, 4 were designed by prominent Atlanta architect J. Neil Reed. W. Elliott Dunwoody, P. E. Dennis, and C. E. Choate also contributed homes on the thoroughfare. 2 historically commercial buildings and the Vineville Baptist Church complete the strip. The Vineville Avenue corridor constitutes the last 3 blocks of primarily residential homes that illustrate the character of the Vineville Historic District. Most of the homes along the corridor are unoccupied and deteriorating. Some homes are candidates for commercial or professional offices, while others could still be rehabilitated as private residences. And yet, increased traffic and commercial intrusion threaten to erase the historic residential fabric and negatively affecting the surrounding district. The Georgia Trust looks forward to working with each of these sites in the coming year as we continue our important work of saving diverse historic resources around the state. Again, we are grateful for the local advocates who supported these nominations, and we commend each and every one of you for your continued support of historic preservation in Georgia.